morning. Welcome to the CNFR Morning Show brought to you by CINCH Jeans and Shirts. My name is Heidi Foy, and I'm the creator of opportunities at Bullfrog Creatives. Stay tuned. You guys aren't going to want to miss this. All right, we are back. We've got some special guests today. Listen, I'm probably not going to do a lot of talking because these guys are going to take over. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
So I am Andy Seiler. I'm one of the announcers here at the College National Finals. This is actually the first big rodeo that I ever announced, actually, while I was a student back in 2008. But just glad to be here.
I'm Kirsten Bold, and I'm the primary stock contractor here at the College National Finals, among other stock contractors that we brought in to help us out. So, yeah, we're just all here having a good time.
That's right.
Glad to be back at work.
Amen. Amen.
Very happy about
so much truth to that. We already talked about quarantine life, which I feel like is the main conversation. Everybody's so excited to be doing something and being back here. It's super awkward because how many years have you been here?
Was that was longer
I
than
didn't ask
Andy?
that question.
You told me there were statistics.
Longer than Andy. I know that we've been here at every year that's been in Casper.
Okay.
And then my dad did in Rapid City for 3 years prior to Casper. And then we were in Bozeman for years before that he was there. And I can't honestly tell you how many years it's been total, but I know that it was in Bozeman a long time because I went there several times when I was a teenager and stuff like that. So it's been a while.
So it proves my point. I mean, when you go to an event like this every year, like when you're a kid, it's your summer vacation. Like,
sure.
So then you create these bonds, these relationships with people, and you miss a year. Like, kids have grown 6 inches. You know, things change with people and careers and all. Like, it's kind of awkward.
It's weird. But I don't know about you guys. It's almost like it didn't happen. Like 2020, almost in a way. Like I'll say something about this is how we did last year. And then I'm like, oh wait a minute, we weren't here last year. Yeah. So in a way, because it was such a different year, and you didn't go any of the same places that you were. It's almost like 2020 didn't really happen. You're at home and for me, in the beginning, like when it first all went crazy, it was like every day lasted forever. But after the first couple of weeks, and it was just, you kind of resigned yourself that you were staying home for a while, then it just kind of flew by. I mean, you got buried into what you were doing at home. And for like, especially Andy and I, we travel so much. Yeah. You got a lot of those projects done that you haven't, nobody wanted to spend a lot of money, of course, because we weren't really,
didn't know where it was coming from.
Exactly. But that being said, there was a lot of free projects around our place that I knew needed attention.
Yeah, for sure.
She's being politically correct. I'm going to be honest with you. I thought you could gain weight on the road until you're at home for 3 months. You have nothing to do and a full wine cabinet. Now, at the end of the summer, the wine cabinet was not nearly as full as it was when I started. But, I got a little soft in the midsection and you get past the dad bod phase, and it's like, all right, we got to do something about this and get our lives back together.
We don't know what that next one's called.
It was crazy, for me, and I've told this story before, but you go into March, and the day that it all happened, I can't remember if it was the 12th or the 13th, and I don't want to remember the actual date.
Oh my gosh, it was Friday the 13th.
Okay, it was Friday the 13th. All right, so
I remember that.
I'm in Houston, Texas. My parents are coming to the rodeo. Like, I'm really excited because we had been there for 2 weeks, and usually my family comes at the end. It's almost like my breath of fresh air gets us through the end of the rodeo so I can go home. So my parents are on their way, and they literally get halfway. I live in Florida. They get halfway to the rodeo, and that's when the announcement's made. So they finish driving, and the whole world shuts down. We eat dinner, and I drink 3 or 4 margaritas because I'm just like, all right, well, let's go to Papacitos and drink margaritas. Exactly. So I drink 3 or 4 margaritas, go to bed, and wake up the next morning like, well, what do we do now? So we literally drive back home to Florida and
take a vacation. So
this was my 2020 schedule. I go from San Angelo, Texas to Houston to nothing until Yuma, Colorado. Now, if you've never been to the rodeo in Yuma, Colorado, you average 65 to 70,000 people a night in Houston. At Yuma, Colorado, 500 is a really, really good crowd if it's not 102 outside. So go from there to the National Finals Rodeo. And that's a lot of people's story for 2020 is you went to these great winter venues to nothing, to anywhere you can go in August, September, and then thankfully the NFR happened. So it was it was one of those things where everybody was turned on their head, and everybody had to find a way to be smart and do things more efficiently because of what happened in 2020.
Yeah, it's funny you said like it's like it never happened. I've said, last year we did da da da. So I think everybody has said that at one point. So
it really does. Maybe we're just trying to just block it out.
Yes.
Maybe like a car accident. It's like if I don't think about it, it never happens.
Never.
Yes, for sure. I would agree with that. So I'm gonna I have to apologize because I'm getting questions from a real job, so I'm texting, but I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. We
they
all
will not wait,
gotta keep these real jobs.
That's right.
Yeah, if anything, we found out this last year how incidental we could be. So, I don't know about you, but I was like, I don't know. How would I be at plumbing? Yeah, but I think a good plumber. I'm like, and then I'd like go attempt to like unstick my drain, and I'd be like, no, let's scratch that off. What else we got? Lumberjack. That's probably not a good one either. I'm not really good at chopping wood.
Do you like flannel? I mean,
well, when you go to the point that you haven't used your college degree in 2 decades, and you start to reevaluate your career options in your 40s, you're like, I'm a little limited. I don't really know what all I have to offer this world that's considered a necessity anymore, because entertainment was not.
Yeah, man. I think we could probably talk about that for a really long time, but let's not.
Okay.
Let's talk about, so clearly both of you guys, we usually start talking about production. So you guys have a big role in production. I would say the one thing that I learned, and I was thinking about this when I was walking in this morning, the one thing I learned the first Sunday that we bucked, that was my openings, my part in the openings, was the timing of it all. And I didn't understand that. Sure. And you scared me.
How can I scare anybody?
You say that because I'm not, like, it's not scary now. Right. But at that time, you were like, what time are we going to buck? And I'm like, when we're done.
I bet that is true, though.
When we're done.
We don't think about that.
But, I mean, that was something that I hadn't thought about. And also hadn't thought about, like, why it was important.
Sure.
If you have a 10-minute opening, and those bareback horses have to stand in that chute for 10 minutes.
That are pulled.
Yes.
Or not pulled, and so then you're not ready.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about kind of the timing and what's ideal for you guys.
Well, it isn't really so much a matter of how long it is. It's just us knowing how long it's going to be.
Right.
Like in an opening. And, for the situation here, and that's why everything's minute to minute and second to second. And when we have these production meetings, it'll say, 6:05 or 7:05, 7:06. And to the average person, they'd be like, what's the difference? If it's, but it is a difference because, like, we load the animals at a certain time so that they don't sit in the chute too long. And then the cowboys need to know so they know how long it takes them to get their horse pulled and everything like that. Because in theory, to have a smooth production, the second that ends and like the production here is when that video ends, they want to buck an animal.
Right.
And so we know that's a 30-second video, but if all of a sudden that video's up there and we're not pulled and we're not ready, then 30-second ends, you're going to wait another 2 minutes for these guys to be, pulled and stuff, which in average time, your person is like 2 minutes. That's like that thing. But 2 minutes with nothing going on in an arena that is completely empty, you can ask these guys that have had to vamp for that time. It is eons of time. It is huge.
Yes. And you guys have to fill that time. And it happens, I mean, it happens inevitably through each event. If a guy, last night there was a steer wrestling horse that was just dancing in the box. And the cowboy's doing the best he can. They're animals. You can't control everything. But then you guys have to fill that space with something.
Well, and the thing that's unique here, I mean, first and foremost, these horses and bulls, they're creatures of habit, so they understand whenever they go in the chute that they kind of have their own mental clock. Hey, this is what's going to happen next. They're going to put the rigging or the saddle on. So, you want them to feel comfortable. That way they don't swell up or anything like that. But the other thing that's different here at the college finals is we also have to meet a mark for ESPN. So, the national anthem has to start at a certain time because we're going live on the internet with ESPN. So those are the other types of things that people don't think about. Well, why does 7:02 or 7:06, why do those times matter? Because we have marks that we have to hit as well so that everything runs smooth, not only here, but also with our television production. So,
well, and I can tell you, I remember it, at 6:40, the Ram truck comes in. At 6:45, the truck goes out. At 6:57, the backlights turn off. It's kind of ingrained. Like you figure it out real quick what that schedule looks like and how you can be on track with that. And I think that overall, as a production team, the staff, they really try to have a 2-hour show.
Oh, absolutely. And they do usually pull it off. And like last night's a perfect example. The governor spoke, as we're all aware of. And it was a huge, it was a great honor to have him here. But he was delayed. He was delayed. His arrival was delayed. He was supposed to speak at 6:45. So everybody was waiting for that so that, and I think he was only delayed by like 2 minutes. But we were waiting for him to speak because he was supposed to be 90 seconds. Then we were going to load. Well, then we waited 2 minutes. He was delayed. So then we started loading. Well, then he starts speaking. So then we're loading when he's speaking. So it's, things happen and life happens and traffic happens. But it's just amazing how like a smallest niche can just put a tailspin in everything that they do, because then ESPN wasn't going to go. They were delayed. Everything was just off of one little tiny bubble that was probably because who knows, maybe there was a train or they met a train in traffic and it just threw them back. And so there's just a lot of things that can affect it, and that's for sure.
Yeah, when you have that many moving parts, you have to have that kind of plan, and you have to be able to stick to it.
Yeah. So next thing, I guess, let's just roll down. Have you guys seen, as long as y'all have been involved in rodeo, have you seen the competition change? Specific to college rodeo, we'll keep it to college rodeo. I mean,
I definitely think that it's improving. I mean, we've seen some great stars over the years, obviously, that have gone on to be gold buckle winner champions. I mean, we watched Cody Wright win a world champion or a title here, and then go on win several world titles later. So there's those special people through the time. But I mean, there's just a lot. I mean, I'm excited about the fact that I think that we have such a great crop of young, up and coming intercollegiate athletes. And there's always a few stars. It seems like that rise. I mean, Cole Franks is having an amazing intercollegiate year, but he's been having an amazing professional career this year. He's starting at San Angelo just kind of turned around for him. And then so he's on that momentum. He's come into the college finals and he's won the first 2 rounds in the bareback riding. So a lot of those guys that are already professionally coming in here, I don't know if they have an edge, but they kind of have an adrenaline. They're on a momentum high, and so you kind of can tell that a lot of times. But I think I've been video and filming just some of our stock, and I was watching some this morning when I was downloading them on YouTube. And there was a kid that rode at Boulevards last night from Clarendon College that, I mean, he almost rode him, and I was like, that kid is trying. Like, I've never heard of this kid before. He's not a name I'm familiar with. But that bull doesn't get rode, and I mean, he missed it by like a second, and I mean, he was trying, and that's the part that is exciting to see, because he's, however, we'll say 20, and that he has that much try in him now, and he's not a big name yet. We're seeing stars in the making here, which is obviously what we've been seeing for years, and it's always exciting.
I don't want to get biblical, but I firmly believe that the college finals, it separates the sheep from the goats. I mean. So when I competed here, my first year, it was the first time I'd ever met Casey Field. Okay. And Casey, if you're watching this, we've already talked about this, so this is approved. But the first time I watched Casey here, he didn't ride very good. He was out of shape, and he'll tell you this. I rode like a fat kid because I was a little pudgy and I didn't have all my stuff together. But the third time, so I qualified 3 years in a row. The third time in 2008 when he came here, he was a totally different individual. He was above and beyond everyone else, and you knew after watching him ride, nobody is going to beat Casey Field. It's tighter for Cole this year. There's a lot of very good bareback riders, but I think this generation has watched guys like Casey and Tim O'Connell that are very serious about their workout regimens and all that. And it used to be 20 years ago that a cowboy could go do what he wanted to do, go have a few beers at the bar and still be competitive and contend for a world title. And I don't think you see as much of that anymore.
You see a lot more focused athletes.
I mean, the Wade Sundells are anomalies.
Isn't it amazing? That's the first name we think of.
It is.
In my mind, I'm like, well, except for Wade.
But those are the anomalies. I mean, you don't have to work out as much being a team roper. But when I got to the college finals, I realized, okay, I've made it to the college finals, but I can't rope with these other guys. So I think it's one of those times where you realize, okay, I've got to go get a job and I'm going to do this recreationally, or I can compete with these guys. And that's where I think you see the separation begin. And those contestants that are in the top 3, they can move on and do it professionally.
Well, and I think it's happening, that kind of transition to becoming an athlete rather than just a cowboy. It's happening earlier in their careers. So, I talked to Jim Boy where we've seen contestants come in that, they're sophomores this year because they missed that freshman qualification last year. And now they're seeing what the competition looks like.
Sure.
You know, it's one thing to win your region, like you know what you're up against, just like you said, you know what you're up against kind of in your region. You see them weekly, you know, 5 rodeos, 10 rodeos out of the year. But when you come to this level and you see what other regions are bringing, and you know maybe the upperclassmen that have been here before, they know they've got their skills down, they, you know, they're already on this track, this workout track, and becoming athletes. So I think we're seeing a lot more younger people coming in already at that stage, but then some of them that missed out last year, they're like, oh snap, I better sharpen it up a little bit.
And I think it's the 1% rule. So 1% of all high school athletes are going to get a college scholarship. 1% of all college athletes are going to go into the pros. So, I think that number's a little bit bigger in rodeo just because our pool's shallower. You don't have tens of thousands of people that are going to go on to get a college scholarship like you do in other sports. But you can tell. I mean, the way people handle their business behind the chutes, the way they prepare their horses or put their horse herd together. And honestly, you have to, because the horses are tougher. The bulls are tougher. I mean, we were actually talking about this after the rodeo last night. The genetic pool of what was 30, 40, 50 years ago, it's not the same. I mean, she's got a world champion stud that they're shipping semen all over the place with. So when you have that type of athlete underneath you, you yourself have to step your game up and treat it like a business.
Yes, so let's talk about that. I think it's super intriguing. um, I had a conversation with another stock contractor that, as it turns out, they've been kind of doing this for a while. But talk to me about what you guys do and how you, I mean, you just had like a naming contest.
Oh yeah,
for a colt like a couple weeks ago. Right. So, I mean, talk to me about your breeding program a little bit.
Well, it was one that originated. My dad obviously started. Brought those horses across the border from Canada years ago, and so a lot of the bloodlines go back to that. And you try to keep your own bloodlines that are working, and then try to incorporate other people's in. That you see a lot of times a mix of like my stuff gets pretty hoppy, nice to ride sometimes, so it's good to mix it with other people's that are maybe stronger. And like I have a birch horse mare out there that I said, I'm going to keep her in breeder because her style is a good mix with our style, and hopefully that'll be a good combination. And so you'll find that. And yeah, we've been very lucky. We've had, just like a lot of rodeo companies, you'll go in spells and you'll have a stud that is a good producer and is not a good producer. And we had one that wasn't for a while. And so then you got to, those with bucking horses are trickier than bulls because it takes so long to find out what you have. So you'll have 4 or 5 crops of years out of that stud before you really find out that he's just not a good producer. He might be a great bucker, but he just doesn't really produce the same. And so then you have a lot of horses that are not that great. They're usually mediocre, but they're just not at that top. And then it takes you a while to kind of breed yourself out of those bloodlines. And it took us a while, just like, I've seen it with other companies, and unfortunately I saw it firsthand a little too close. Yes. Saw it a little closer than I wanted to. But anyway, I mean, things are looking up, and it's going good as far as that goes. And I guess one thing I was just going to say, what excites me about rodeo compared to other professional sports is that there's more options for people to come here intercollegiately. They go to school. They realize that maybe they're not going to compete against Cole Franks at Casey Fields. Yeah. But they can go on the weekends, and they can go to their, and that's something that's not offered in football and baseball and stuff like that, is that we can offer them. That's where the circuit finals originated. And we've got the circuit rodeos, and guys can be your weekend warriors, we label them. But it's great because they can continue their rodeo career that they were in college, and they maybe didn't win the title here, or they did, but they weren't in that 1%, as you speak, that go on for, but they can still compete professionally. Sure. And that's the great thing about the PRCA, is that there's different levels that they can still continue, and they're right into their 30s still. But then because of their college degree that they got and they use their scholarship or whatever to get a degree, they can have a job, have a family, and do all that, and still continue rodeo. That's what I think is so special about our sport compared to others. You got football players that they get drafted, and then they got to go right on, and they don't finish school because they better stay while they're hot or whatever road they path. But then they're in their 30s and they're done. Yeah, they made millions of dollars, but they weren't ever, then they're kind of just sitting here with this 30-year-old retired. What are you going to do? Yeah. And so I do think that rodeo has a great niche for people that aren't our 1%, and I think that's a great thing that the college finals cultivates that.
No, there's a lot of people at the summer rodeos. Like, they're a school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's summertime,
Yeah,
they'll come north. They live in Texas. They'll come north and go to Colorado, Utah, Wyoming rodeos because that's their hobby. And even though they're in their 40s and 50s, they can still chase their hobby and make a little money while they're doing it. So
and it takes all of those. I mean, we need all of those people to keep our organization because, like Andy pointed out, we're a smaller demographic and it's a large, not the big pool of tens of thousands of football players and baseball players all over the country pouring into to make professional athletes. We don't have that big of a pool, so we need everybody but that's kind of exciting to see a lot of these high school kids and how the high school numbers have grown and all these junior rodeo numbers have grown because eventually those are going to come to us, and that's a great thing. That's huge.
For sure.
That's huge job security for all of us.
Amen.
Yeah. Hey guys, we're going to take just a little bit of break and we will be right back.
Perfection almost looks easy. But it isn't. Here's to those who go the distance.
Hey, we are back. Thanks for joining us. If you are just joining us, this is the CNFR Morning Show brought to you by CINCH Jeans. I am Heidi Foy. This is Kirsten Bold and Andy Seiler. So we are just kind of having a little BS session about college rodeo. One of the things that I think has been amazing, again, we've already talked about having that 1 year off that didn't exist in our minds. We don't, whatever. But it's so exciting to see how the crowds have been this week. You know, usually Tuesday, like we're kind of just getting started. People are still, I mean, really it's at the beginning of their work week. They're maybe not quite ready for those activities, but man, they have shown up this week. And Andy, I know that you are in those production meetings where you get to hear about all the numbers and the revenue. And, why don't you kind of speak to us about that a little bit?
Well, I think night after night, so we're comparing everything to 2019, which was the second best year ever when it comes to attendance and revenue. But we've been on average about 25% up. And I think that's why we take pride in what we're doing, but we also want to do it the best way we can, because when you get new people and you get more people coming in, we want to make sure that we can carry that wave, that it's not just, okay, we had this big rise and then we fall right back down. So if we can put the best product out there, we want all of these big crowds, because it's not just here. We're hearing about sellouts everywhere. I heard Elizabeth, the crowds were really, really great.
Everywhere.
So if we can take that and we can put the best show on for these people, it kind of spreads like wildfire, and we can keep it going and carry it for years, not just one blip on the radar screen.
1 year, yeah. I think one thing that's really good that you can always count on, and that I feel like is different at the college level, is you hear that college try. Mm-hmm. It's just a little bit different than going to a pro show. Oh, sure. I mean, these kids, especially at this level, you've got a lot of seniors that potentially this could be their last rodeo. Mm-hmm. And at that point, like, everything's on the line. Absolutely. They're gunning, they're running at the barrier, they're riding hard, and that alone puts on a little bit better show. And then you add the production staff and everybody else that's also trying to do their absolute best, if not more. You put out a great performance.
Well, I'm not going to speak for Kirsten, but I like short rounds second best. My favorite rounds are elimination rounds. You can't speak for Kirsten. I agree with you. You get so much more emotion in rounds where it's money or mud. You have to make it happen here to go forward or not, because it is. Some of these people, it's their last shot. Like a wild card round at some of the other events that we work. When this is your last chance, there's 12 people, only 2 are going to make it. Those kind of scenarios, you get true human emotion. And Cowboys, I hate to say this, if you're listening, don't be stoic. Show emotion. Yes. People like that, But Cowboys traditionally are very stoic. Just little hat tip, I mean, the Sid Steiners of the world, I used to love that kind of stuff, because you got an immediate reaction and you knew what he was thinking and what he was feeling. So round 3 to me is my favorite. And Thursday and Friday night, we usually get more of that emotion because people really understand, all right, I have
This
a
is
really
go
good
time.
chance to move forward, or I'm done and I'm not moving on. So
Yeah.
that's why round 3 is my favorite.
Well, and I agree with that. And I've noticed this year, to me, like, I think there's a lot more family, friends, neighbors, and stuff. The crowds have been great. They've been
Even
up
in
so
the
much.
slack.
Absolutely. But I think I can vouch for this just because we stay out at the fairgrounds in our trailers, and we have never ever been as crowded as we are. There are people parking where there's no outlets. Like, they're just RVs everywhere out there. You can't even hardly find a place to park your vehicle. But I think it's just like everybody's ready to do something.
Right.
Everybody was locked up last year, and whether it was their neighbor or their niece or their daughter, like the parents of the parents and the grandparents have usually come, but I think more secondary family and friends are traveled to Casper this year just to be a part of this because they're ready to get out. And that emotion in the building, you can feel it because they have a direct tie. That is the girl that they've seen grow up. That is the boy that has worked for them, or that is whatever the situation scenario is. They're not, and when you feel that, and you feel, then that's an even more electric feeling. And,
for sure.
And so I think all of those emotions tied in with COVID, people being locked up last year and everything, has just made it, it's been a more exciting year. And anytime, Andy can vouch for this too. You can have a great rodeo, and if there's nobody there to watch it, it is so hard to get excited. And they have the toughest job at all because it's like we did a fanless. I was lucky enough not only have to do one fanless event through all of this mess or be a part of fanless. And that was our Mount State Circuit Finals last fall. And it was the weirdest, eeriest thing because you're so like, but I will say this much is that we all realize that we respond to the crowd.
Yes.
And after the first performance of Silence, whenever there was an 85 or 86, the rest
Everybody
of us
started cheering.
Yeah, we were only allowed 175 people in the entire. That included the guys pulling the gates, the contestants. No contestants was allowed, a guest, anybody. So we were very limited, and it was black tape or whatever you want to call all around the seats, like we were going to go up there anyway. But anyway, nobody had time. Everybody had 3 jobs. But all that being said, we started cheering for each other, which we normally don't show emotion. Like you said, Cowboys are very stoic. But when you take away the crowd that is usually there to give them, everybody realized those guys need to hear that they just made an 87-point ride. I remember Garrett Upton, who's competing here, rode Lunatic from Hell. And I mean, we went nuts. I mean, it was crazy. Like, everybody was screaming, all the tiny bit was hollering.
Yeah.
Because you know what? It was a young kid, and he rode Saddle Bronc of the Year. Yeah. And he went to him, and nobody was there to see it or hear about it. And so you had to give him something for that. Yeah. And it was very exciting. So that being said, I guess that's where rodeo as a family comes into play, because you realize that we've got to help. We've got to fill in that spot that we're used to perform. We're all performers. These guys feed off the crowd. They give knowledge out, and the crowd responds to it. They say something funny, and the crowd responds to it. When there's no response there, it's just like talking to a wall, and it's difficult.
It's hard.
Well, and I think, the college finals have been in Casper for such a long time. Communities can get complacent with these things. Casper also hosts all the state high school championships, track and volleyball and wrestling. And, when those have been in your community for so long, you do get complacent.
Sure.
Like, volleyball's back, or wrestling, the college, there's a rodeo or something going on.
Right.
And so I think when that was all taken away last year, everybody kind of had an eye opener. I mean, there were things that were discovered within our community that didn't include the entertainment piece, which I think is great. But I think for it to come back and be so strong just kind of speaks to the fact that, oh man, we're so lucky to have this in our house. We're so lucky to be a part of something like this.
Absolutely.
So, and I would also add, I think the CNFR and NIRA has done a really good job formatting the rodeo, having the Tuesday through Saturday performance, the Tuesday through Friday being that third go, for that reason that you said. Like, every night this week is really run and gun for a lot of these kids. There's some team ropers that have maybe 2 scores or 1 score and 1 no time. There's still an option for them to make it back. And especially in the bull riding too. I mean, that's kind of questionable also. I think yesterday there was one guy that had ridden 2. That could have changed last night.
Sure.
But, it's kind of anybody's game still.
Absolutely.
I think maybe there's some, like the breakaway, you're not going to see anybody come back with a no score.
Well, and traditionally the goat tying has always been a very, very tough competition. But, there are lots of opportunities still out there. And then there's a couple of other competitions. Usually the barrel racing is usually so tight that
man.
it's only 2 or 3 that can really do anything. And honestly, I mean, we talked about it earlier, but the bareback riding, there's only 3 or 4 that can really do anything once they get through round number 3. But there's some very, very good storylines, and I think Cole Franks is a big one because if so, Cole's dad qualified for the NFR 3 times, Brett, and that's his coach. So to me, that's a whole nother element that you're rodeoing for your dad. But Cole didn't win, like Kirsten said, he didn't win anything at the pro rodeos that he went to until he went to San Angelo. So could you imagine entering a bunch of professional rodeos and college rodeos? So you're out all this money till the first part of April, and then you get this big check, and now he's just outside of the top 20. So, or right inside the top 20. So, to be in your early 20s, you could leave here, win a collegiate title, and then hopefully qualify to his first national finals. That's a young man that's got a bright future in front of him.
Yeah, and it's just one rodeo. I mean, if you hit and win one big rodeo,
and there's a lot of rodeos left in the
streak.
Professional level this year because so many events that are usually in April and May, moved, like especially on the West Coast, they moved them to September, and September is going to be a very busy month. Like we're going to see a lot of changes, I think. I mean, either the top dogs are going to just win more money, get farther ahead, or some other guys are going to get in, right? Because there's just going to be a lot of money available in a month that normally doesn't change that much.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, usually Labor Day is a huge weekend, so the beginning of September, it's almost front loaded, But then you see a lot of guys towards the end of the month. I mean, it's the bubble people. It's 16 through 20
have to go hard,
that are trying to win $500 to $1,000, and you have all those heartbreaking stories of people, in 16th. But it's funny to me because, and I don't know what Kirsten thinks, but I've always thought that really the rodeo season starts right after the college finals. I'm a team roper, so I'm a little biased, but Trey Yates, he's either third or fourth generation NFR qualifier. He won the college finals. It was either 2017 or 2018. Leaves here, wins Reno, and just goes on a heater and qualifies to his first national finals rodeo. So that story is not an anomaly. There have been many times where somebody wins here and they leave going, I can beat these guys. I can compete.
I might be biased, but who did he win the national title with?
Trey Yates. I'm trying to remember. I don't know.
I'm guessing somebody that she knows.
Who was it?
Wasn't it a Johnson boy?
I don't know if it was or not. You might be right. There's 2 Johnsons out tonight.
I know.
Listen. You're trying to segue to get to
that.
I see what you're doing.
I am. I've got to show some hometown colors here.
Reading the tea leaves.
Got to show some hometown colors. So the Johnson boys, which same thing, their dad is their coach. Of course, their dad's been their coach. Forever. Anyways. Right.
Yeah.
But a national champion father, like those are some real big shoes to fill. I mean, is that intimidating, or do you just? I mean, I think these boys clearly have stepped up.
Sure.
But I can see how, I mean,
it's not always easy. Like, you can learn sometimes from other people easier than you can a parent because it's too close,
Could not agree more.
As we both have kids that are probably just getting started.
Well, it's funny because my son, he's 8, and he's kind of interested, but it's one of those things where I'm not going to shove it down his throat because I don't want him to hate it. But he likes golf and tennis, and he's pretty athletic. I don't know where he got that from. It's probably my wife. But I'll try to tell him something, and it just, his eyes glaze over, whatever, Dad, you don't know what you're talking about. But somebody else will tell him the exact same thing. He picks it up and runs with it. So the good thing about the Johnson family is, yes, Jet has a gold buckle. He has all the knowledge, and he's a very good teacher. But Jet also has a network of people that he can make one phone call and go, hey, can you maybe, make a little note of saying this to Carson or Kellen, and
even his brother Justin, his dad. I mean, Jameis has a wealth of knowledge, trained cutting horses, still does, and Justin's there too. So, but I mean, it's not just the team roping side of it, but they've got horsemanship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which you don't always learn.
Right.
I'm learning that now with my kiddo, who, I feel your pain. It's the same thing. We have college girls that keep their horses at our place, and they can tell her the same thing.
Sure. Not a problem.
Which is fine. I'm fine with that. Someday we'll be able to go back and forth. But, to have that wide, I guess resources and people that it's so helpful.
Well, and Kirsten can speak to this as well. The hardest part to me when you get into the summertime is trying to fix problems on the road.
Oh,
I mean, if you have, those guys are young, so they're not going to go out and buy, three or four $50,000 horses. So if you get into the 4th of July run and you've got a horse that's sore and doesn't want to do something, it's very, very difficult to go, okay, I've got to line up a chiropractor and I've also got to be in Belle Fourche tomorrow, or I pulled a shoe. I have to, you've got 3 or 4 different rigs. So it's a moving target. And the busier they get as the summer run comes to fruition, it's very, very difficult to fix all those problems on the road. You're hauling to Santa Fe or wherever and your transmission goes out. Okay, well now I have to get a new truck. I've got to unload these animals and do everything. So those are the type of things that people don't understand that's kind of behind the scenes is once you put the truck in gear and you go down, your summer run, it's very, very difficult to fix everything. You can snowball in a positive direction, but it can also go negative very quickly.
And those guys that, they try to ride herd or they do something like that and they don't want to miss out on the opportunity, but they all, they don't want to stay home 2 weeks and this period can be very detrimental. However, when you ride herd or you're, even a time events, you're trying to do it herd, it's generally you're not at your top of your game. And a lot of guys, then they get mentally in their head because they're not riding to the way they are and they'd be better off going home, but they don't want to miss out. And so it's, the summer is tricky, but I do agree with you. Like the 4th of July coming up is kind of when
everything
it is. And we've kind of always noticed like July is that make it or break a month. Like they kick off the 4th of July and then Cheyenne's always seems to be kind of like everybody enters Cheyenne. And then at the end of Cheyenne, you see a lot of guys go home, like we used to go to Dodge City and that was always fun. They had to enter before Cheyenne was over, but we'd end up getting a lot of dock releases, turnouts and stuff because they kind of had it in their head. We'll see
if I don't do good here.
Right. If we win Cheyenne or we win a Cheyenne, then we'll keep going. If not, we're going home because we're broke, we're hurt, whatever the situation is. And a lot of time August is a heal up month, and then, they start thinking about the next year or they've got enough of a lead. They can go home and heal up for a while in August and then try to hit the end of August, like you say, Labor Day weekend for a few of those big roads in September. It's going to be, I'm interesting to see how the year plays out this year with so many of the big rodeos moving to September. If they'll take their break at a different time because they want to heal up and be good to go in September or how that'll play out. In perfect world, you're not hurt. Right. Your horse isn't crippled, whatever the situation is. But unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect world as much as
so I've had a couple conversations with Luke Branquino and Blake Knowles were on the broadcast last year, and I talked a lot about how they enter and how they make, how do you make your schedule for the year? It's going to be completely different. And there's no like seniority in this. Like we're all freshmen in this game trying to enter and how we're going to do it. And if rodeos are at different times now, it changes your game a lot.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of the rodeos that have been, a lot of these kids like the Wrights, Cody still enters most all those boys, Well, he's used to a schedule of the way that it always was. He's smart enough to know how to adjust that schedule, but he's definitely going to enter them differently, I'm sure, with them being the way they are, with the rodeos a little bit different and stuff. So who knows? I guess it's interesting. It'll be a learning curve for all of us.
Well, and with different traveling partners like Tilden and Casey, both college champions, they switch years. So one year Casey will do all the entering. This year Tilden's doing all the entering. And it's funny when I talked to Casey about it, I said, wait, you trust Tilden to do all the entering? And he goes, actually, he's a lot more detailed with entering than I am. I said, oh, okay, I never would have imagined that one.
You know what is crazy? I've been doing these Reagan rallies and working a lot with Tilden. He's very detail oriented. And from the person that you see and that is not the person that you think of. But he really is. He's very on top of things and very wants to make things correct. And I could see that. I could see where he would be very good at running the entering. Would have never guessed it. But, who knows? We all have our side.
And that's the other part we're talking about, crowds being up. Entries have been up pretty much everywhere because of how that schedule has changed. So some things have opened up where there were rodeos before. Exactly, where there was 10 rodeos in one weekend. Well, St. Angelo goes from February to April. So now some of those weekends in March and places like that are more open. And so we've seen a lot of rodeos that have record entries as well.
Absolutely.
So and I think you're going to see more and more of that as the year goes on. But It'll be interesting to see who kind of lasted out, because there were some new faces at last year's national final rodeo, and so I think you're going to see more
Including
and more of that.
Andy's.
Yeah, well,
First NFR last year.
No,
did a great
but
job.
it was cool because
Change the subject.
Cato Llewellyn was a NFR rookie in the tie down rope, and he was 37 years old.
Oh.
So at 37, qualified to his first national finals rodeo. It was 2004 Rookie of the Year. So that was one of the stories that came out of last year, and I'm interested to see Chad as well.
For his age in that event is a rarity, to make his first NFR.
And he's been able to carry that forward.
Really
I mean, he's really.
When I saw him in Derby, he said he won like 5 of the 6 rodeos he'd went to.
Oh my gosh,
that's amazing!
Yeah,
that's great.
Those are good odds.
They are. Yeah. That's great.
And I mean, he's and Will Lowe. Sometimes Will scares me.
I know. Oh my gosh!
But he's 37, 38 years old, still riding bareback horses, and he's 5'3".
And he's tougher, and he's the only one that would get on Killer Bee. Yeah. What did they say? They turned him out at San Angelo, and he's the oldest one there, and he's the only one that will get on her, and about killed him. But I mean, he's just no fear, I mean, that's like him and Wade are kind of that same.
They're cut from the same cloth.
They're kind of the cut from the same cloth, exactly.
Well, so we're coming up on about 45 minutes here. So we have not spoken about what both of your roles are here. So let's kind of go down that path. Who would like to?
She's got
roles
more
like roles or rules. I was like,
I think rules. I think
I didn't know we had rules.
No roles. Sorry.
Roles.
So talk to me about kind of how many stock, how many animals you bring, and then how do you prepare and pick those animals?
Well, we brought ourselves personally. We brought in 77 horses and 18 bulls, and then Frontier brought 57 horses and 23 bulls, and Triple V had 2 bulls, and I ended up I think like 15 horses, and then so like Rocky Mountain Rodeo Company, and then they brought in 20 horses and 8 bulls, and so those are like, I guess my job is to deciding how many subcontractors we bring in and stuff like that, and there's a lot of logistics that play into the role because you can only house so many animals at that fairgrounds at a time. So we have to be realistic. Ourselves and Frontier stay here the whole time, so we can't overpopulate with other. Sometimes it would be nice to bring in some extra help on those first couple of days because we've got so many animals. But logistically, there's just not enough room to house as many animals as it really would be nice to have here at one time. So you sometimes have to play that into effect. I think the biggest thing is making sure that we try to keep those go-rounds as even as possible. That sometimes is not, as easy to do as you'd like it to be. The first round, which is we buck all the rough stock on Sunday, and that's generally a lot of the times our short round horses, or you try to make it a pretty tough pen, and then ideally in your mind when you're setting it, the second round is more of a softer pen, but that is the same type of deal. That's softer, but like more rider friendly and stuff like that. And then you come back with on the third round a little more ranker pen is generally how you set it. But it doesn't always work that way when you're putting together that many animals. We had over 40, 42 bronc riders, I think, and 36 bareback riders and 32 bull riders. When you're trying to put that amount of stock together for a go-around, it's pretty difficult to make sure, especially with other people's stuff that you're not as familiar with, that they're all going to buck the same. So you do the best job you can, and you make mistakes. And I've made mistakes this year. There's a lot of things I've been mad about myself. Animals that I thought
didn't really fit.
Yeah, they didn't fit, or they didn't do like I've seen them when I bucked them before. But that's animals. That's one thing that being in the business that we're in, I don't know if that's what hooks you or what, is that it's never the same, you know, and so when it's really good, it's hard to beat it because that there's just there's so many things out of your control. And for a person that likes to have things in a kind of OCD fashion, and I like order and I like organize, maybe that's why I'm attracted to this, because animals are animals. I can take them to the show. I can control their diet. I can control where they stay. I can control all these things, but I control what chute they land into. But once that gate opens, I have no control. And there's a certain amount of that's probably challenging to me, because no matter how much I try to control it, I can't. And I can't control the draw. I can't control what cowboy draws what. And so that is things that are out of control. But then when they work out and this animal steps out there and it performs to a level that you never imagined, and this kid does too, and it's a perfect match, then you had no, then you're like, that's
it works.
Just, yeah, it is. It is. And so there's that bit of uncertainty in life that I guess keeps you hooked, the highs and lows. The highs are high and the lows are low. And my dad always used to say there's peaks and valleys. Life's peaks and valleys. And so if you're in a valley, the good news is there's a peak somewhere coming up.
Yes.
And but when you're on that peak, enjoy the ride.
You better know.
Chances are you got a valley in your future. And so you better cheer for the days when you had. I really try to make an effort when we have a great performance and you feel it click and the animals are bucking. Yes. And everything goes. I really try to make an effort to make sure, and our crew, thank everybody and do all that, because we all need to enjoy the high together. Because whenever things are bad, the guys in the back, they had nothing to do with the animals not bucking, but we all feel it. They feel equally the same emotion, and so it's a team effort.
Well, and I would say too that I think it's just as much, come back to the crowd again. That crowd plays into the animals just as much as it feeds the confidence in the cowboys. Absolutely. I mean, they can feel that energy. They know when the house goes dark, especially for the bareback riding horses. Like when that house goes dark, they have to know that, all right,
this is it. This is it. You can feel them tense up. Yeah.
Well, and just think about the rough stock events, just from a sheer number standpoint. Okay, so if there's an average of 40 per event, there's 3 events. So that's 120 outs per event. So you've got 360 outs before you get to your championship round. So by the time you're done, that's 400 bucking animals, okay? 400 opportunities. So that's a lot to have to manage. So if you go backwards, I don't look at Kirsten's calendar, but to plan all of that out just to be able to get that done in 8 days' time, that's a lot of things that have to come together to make that work. So hats off to you.
For sure. Yeah, so how many people do you bring in to help you?
Like on my crew?
Yep.
Let's see, Tyson. We have a bigger crew on the first Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. There's 5 guys. There's 4 guys working back there, and Fred's in the front. And then, we help each other. Like Frontier helps us. The way we got Sunday structured, it's all their horses in the first perf and all our horses in the second perf, and the bulls are just flipped. And that helps because then we can help them hang flanks on theirs, and they can help us hang. Because Sunday is so fast. And with one get ready alley in the back and then they split, you just have to keep it to be able to, and so everybody's got to help each other, and it's constantly those 4 guys in the back, are constantly either loading something or some truck's got to be loaded to pull away to bring in the next load of stuff because there's just not enough room logistically for all those animals. So they're constantly switching because there's only an hour between the 2 performances, which sounds like plenty of time. But when you got to load up all those animals, get them gone, get the other ones off, get them sorted into sections and deliveries, it's a very quick turnaround. And the crew that I have here, I mean, I can't speak enough about them. Those guys work so good together. Ryan Brown, he's second command at the National Finals Rodeo. Dalton Ward's had this job running this in the back for years. Dustin, this was his first year here, but he's worked for us at other places. Tyson Twitchell's been here, I think, 3 years. But they know, they do an amazing job, and I can't even imagine doing it without those first 3 days without them. But it takes everybody, and it does, and things sometimes don't go as planned. But there's always a part of me that's just a little bit. You don't want bad things to happen, but whenever something bad does happen, you're always a little bit warned by the impact of everybody pulling together.
Everybody comes together.
Over the years, of course, just like anything else, on occasion we've had an animal athlete injured. And I'm always just later when you reflect on how it pulls the students together and it pulls the coaches together and it pulls my crew in the back, everybody just reacts so quickly because everybody is lovers of animals. Like whether they rope them or they ride them or whatever, they all, at the end of the day, animals are what drew them to rodeo. So whenever one is injured, instinct kicks in, and it doesn't matter your age, your experience, or whatever. That's all that anybody cares about is to get that animal to safety or what we can do.
No matter the event.
No matter the event. And I'm always, and I seem like it's here that you just realize it probably because there's so many kids and there's so, and they just do whatever they can. And I remember, a long time ago when we were in Minot, North Dakota, and one of our broncs kicked her leg through a chute and got it outside, and it was just, it was in the get ready, and it was just crazy. We couldn't pop a panel or anything. We had to get a welder, a cutting torch over to cut her out. But I mean, like people were just springing into action, and they're just kids just running over there. And what can we do? And somebody brings in a cut torch, or some kid's a student. They're just like, and they know to cover. Yeah, it's just everybody stops what they're doing. They're more worried about that animal than getting ready for their ride or getting ready for their run. And that's always a heartwarming thing. Nobody ever wants to see an animal hurt. No. But it's just so cool that, we see a kid get hurt in the arena and but it's just the same for an animal. And I think that's a really great thing to be a part of. Like to be a part of a sport that centers around that so much. Yeah, it really is.
Well, and that's kind of the difference too between like any other sport and rodeo. We all compete. I mean, college rodeo is a little bit different because you're on a team. But really, we all compete individually, and we all cheer for one another. We all help each other. You see contestants, he's up, a calf roper will be up 5 people down, and he's pushing a calf for somebody.
Yeah. Or the guy winning is helping put the rigging on the guy.
It could beat him.
They could beat him, and he's helping him get ready. And that happens all the time in our sport.
Yes.
And I think, how wouldn't it be? That's so great. Yeah. Like that, you hear about somebody was talking about how they poison, like at some, I don't even know, like their show steer or something like that they poisoned the show steer. We go, but they poisoned the wrong animal. This parent's telling me the story like this is a normal thing. Like a normal activity. And I'm just horrified looking at him. And he goes, well, it's $50,000. And I'm like, who cares? I'm like, that's terrible. He goes, well, it gets pretty cutthroat. I'm like, thank goodness that's not my world. Yeah. Like, that would never happen in this, like people are nobody would ever come out.
I don't think it would even cross their minds.
No, nobody would go injure somebody's roping horse just so that they could get ahead. I mean, that would never even cross their mind.
So, I mean, it reminds me of that, what was it? The ice skaters.
Oh, yeah. Nancy Kerrigan.
Yes,
and the crazy blonde.
Not Tanya Harding.
Yeah,
is it Tanya Harding?
Yes. But like that's not going to happen.
No,
that is not going to happen. Yeah. And I mean, it's the same thing. Like, I can't tell you how many tires I've blown on my horse trailer and have another person kind of stop by, or even, a car alongside the road and a horse trailer stops to help. Like, it's just a different atmosphere, which it kind of plays back to the relationships and the family, and those relationships are key. And we talked about it yesterday a lot with the intern, Colton Crawford, that was in here, like kind of reminding him, like, man, the relationships you build here this week, that's going to be what sets your career on fire.
Well, it's funny you say that because I don't come. I rodeoed growing up. My dad was a circuit team roper, but that was as high as he was going to get. But my second year here, I had announced some amateur rodeos and stuff to pay my way through school. But I just literally walked up to Boyd and introduced myself and said, "Hey, I want to be a rodeo announcer." And I don't know if if he saw something, I don't know, but he just gave me his card. He gave me his card and said, "If you ever need anything, call me." Well, in December, I bought a roping horse at the sale in Vegas, and I couldn't afford to get him shipped home. So Andy lives in Florida. He bought a horse in Vegas. Thankfully, I could get him to Arizona, but I myself had to drive to Arizona. My parents were like, "Nope, you bought him. You go get him." Like, I'm not going to help you. So I literally drove out there to get him, and I'm on the way home, and I don't know anybody. And for whatever reason, Boyd's card was in my truck. So I called Boyd and I said, "Hey, I know you don't know me from Adam, but I need a place to stay, and I'm by myself, and I'm really, really tired.
And I'm really hungry."
Yeah, I mean, just all these things, My truck didn't have cruise control. Like, it was the worst experience ever. I didn't know you could tear an ACL just holding down an accelerator, but it was – so he literally – let me turn this horse out at his house. I sleep in his office on the couch, wake up the next morning, and he just starts talking to me about the rodeo business. What do you want to do? Showing me contracts, and we just start having conversations. And he picks up the phone and calls Bob Barnes. Bob Barnes was the guy that gave Boyd his start. And, he said, "Bobo, I got this young kid here. Do you have anything this summer that we could get him plugged into?" And he just got his card. And so I had 3 rodeos that year for Bob Barnes. Well, Boyd had never seen me announce. So he's making this recommendation just off conversations we've had. So fast forward to the college finals in 2008, and I didn't do any good in the team roping. So Boyd goes, "Hey, I want to see you do this because you're announcing next weekend in Glenwood City, Wisconsin for Bob Barnes. So I want to make sure." This was Thursday night. So I announced with Boyd that night. We go in the post-production meeting, and they said, "Hey, you guys did good together, so do Friday and Saturday." So we did that, and I got a compliment from Harry, and that was that was one of those things where, hearing him say
It's real.
you did a fine job, young man. I mean, that's one of those things that you'll never forget. And from there, I've made some contacts and done some stuff on my own, but he didn't have to do that. And Boyd is one of those people that you always know where you stand with Boyd, but he's done great things for me and been very, very helpful. And it all started right here in Casper. So
I think of one word to describe Boyd, it'd be loyal.
Yeah. Yes.
Like if he is very loyal, that is like the thing he will go to bat for you. Like if you're his now, if you cross him, that's not necessarily a good thing. But that being said, if you're his friend, like he has your back regardless of who's around or whatever. And that's a pretty good quality, and sometimes it isn't one necessarily shown by everybody in 2021. So it's definitely something.
Well, and so I would speak to that as well. I started Bullfrog Creatives kind of on a whiff, and I remember having a conversation with him, and he took time out. Y'all have busy schedules when you're here. I mean, you don't just come and announce a rodeo and go back to the hotel. And same with you. I mean, your schedule is not just at the rodeo. And so for him to take time out, I mean, it was, I don't know, probably a Wednesday or Thursday afternoon. We sat down and talked about kind of what my vision for Bullfrog Creatives was. And he gave me some good ideas. And I would say that's why I'm where I'm at now. I mean, it kind of took off because of some ideas that he gave me, but I would also say that he's also stuck his neck out for me. I mean, I've put a lot of resumes out and done a lot of things with his recommendation. And yeah, I mean, I would tell you, I was scared to work with him because of the level that he is.
Yes, he is.
I mean, listen, if you guys don't know this, he's tall. He's a big guy. And so even when you're just that is intimidating. And my husband told me the other day after we said hi on Sunday, he says, "Man, Boyd's got really big hands."
Oh yeah.
Like,
the only person that intimidates me more, and for no reason at all, because he's the nicest guy in the world, but Oak Berry. Oak Berry has,
because he's a big dude.
Oh, it's like a catcher's mitt. Like his hand is huge, and when he puts it on your shoulder, because I've done some junior events for him in Vegas, and he'll put his hand on your shoulder, and you're like, oh God, I hope I'm doing everything right. I mean, because
this is taking me down.
All he's got to do is just barely do this, and he could snap my collarbone. But no, the thing, and I've heard Boyd say this multiple times, is you can't pay someone enough to care. Yeah. And you never have to question whether or not Boyd cares. Yeah. He cares about what he's doing, and he cares about everyone who is involved doing their best job. Sometimes he comes off the wrong way because he is a very intimidating person, and he has a powerful presence. I mean, when he walks in a room, everybody kind of perks up just because of kind of who he is and how he is. But you never have to question whether or not Boyd cares, because he always has the fan and the event's best interest in mind, and,
For sure.
And you never have to question that.
I can say, although I don't want to, I can say that he made my openings look so good.
Yeah.
And I mean, we made changes. He would make changes, and I would be like, man, how long I worked on that. But all the changes that he made, it was constructive criticism. It made me better at my job.
Yep.
Sure. And so, I definitely learned a lot from doing that little production piece. And honestly, I almost feel like every cowboy across the board, not just in college rodeo, they should see that side just a little bit. I mean, if you haven't produced something or
that's a whole different deal.
I mean, it changes your outlook tremendously.
That's one of my favorite things to tell team ropers is, you'll appreciate event and a lot more when you put one on. When you have to find 120 head of rope and steers, and you have to find a flagger, or you flag it yourself, and you listen to all the complaints, that's when you'll realize, oh, it's not just, book a venue and call all your buddies. There's so much more.
Somebody has to take a rope off every one of those steers,
right.
And you don't think that whenever you're the one roping them and just in the catch bin.
And that was one of my things growing up, that whenever somebody took my rope off, I always said thank you, because I know that job sucks. So,
and I've had that job in the slack many times, and I will say that there are guys that don't even acknowledge you, and there's the ones that thank you every time,
and you remember that,
and you remember that, and you appreciate that. You do.
Yeah. And I would say too, just a plug for the people that we have working. I know Brent Caruth puts together a really good team. My husband's been working it for a couple of years now. I mean, it's not easy.
No, it is, and it's kind of a thankless job. It's not in the limelight. Nobody gets introduced. You don't get, there's no, but you play such an important role in the whole production of things because that has to happen. That's a job that has to be.
Those boys that run out and grab those flank straps every night, man.
Absolutely.
Well, not just that, but I also want to say thank you to the building staff. They have gone above and beyond this year. And listen, I know
every year
they all appreciate that we're back and there's things happening, there's revenue coming in. I get that. But like I was saying just a minute ago, you can't pay people enough to care, and they have done an excellent job this year of making sure everyone has what they need and that we're in the right place at the right time. So
I got to brag on the guys at the fairgrounds too, because the only hay available for us this year were round bales, which in our situation is very difficult to feed because we don't have any way to feed it. We have to split it between pens and stuff, and they bring the tractor over, and instead of just like loading it on vehicles, which is what they've always done for us, they're having to feed it for us. They have to go into the pens. They have to spread it out. They have to roll it out. They're having to play a much larger role. And we absolutely, and animals are destructive. And we broke the floats on the tank several times, and they were calling them, and they're over there plumbing and stopping whatever they're doing. And so we're so grateful for all of their input, because I'm sure that whenever we come to and there's a lot of people in that fairgrounds, and everybody's camping out, and I'm sure trash and staying on top of that. It takes a lot. Those are the thankless jobs that nobody really gets spotlighted for. But if it weren't for all those people doing that, this college finals wouldn't go off like it does. We wouldn't. If you didn't have all those people camped out there, you wouldn't have all the people in the stands. If you didn't have all these people in the building making all these things happen, you wouldn't have the product that they can knock off in 2 hours. And
absolutely.
Andy and I go to that production meeting every night, and it's all the coaches that are volunteering and then matching shirts. And maybe your only job is to rake around the barrels for those times. But if you don't do it in the amount of time, you've cost time, and you got to be on that gate. And you can't let any more than one girl in. That you got to pay attention to what everything is in that meeting.
Well, I mean, everybody
your
has
job
a job.
is only to open a gate for the go tires or something.
There's a guy out back in the tunnel calling kids in.
Absolutely. And there's nobody gonna his name's not gonna be on a plaque anywhere, and he's not gonna get introduced. He's probably not gonna be on your show, but his role is just as important as making everything
So
happen.
on Monday morning at 6:15, it was 6:15, I talked to Don Walters. He was out there wearing an orange vest helping cowboys and cowgirls park. He's been volunteering for 15 years. He's been parking trailers for 15 years. I mean, it seems like it's not a big deal, but I can tell you, if you leave it to the cowboys to park, there ain't gonna be enough room.
No,
because they're gonna be wonky.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
The first guy there gets the biggest spot.
That's parks cricket or whatever. But there's so many people in the community, and he said, we love having the rodeo here. This is my highlight. I love doing this. I get to meet all these kids, but those little jobs are what make it work and make Casper home of the CNFR.
Well, it is. And look at the partnership between the CNFR and Casper over the years. Remember when the river was flooding and they put all the sand and all the kids went down?
I was working at the American Red Cross.
Isn't that amazing?
Time. And we were filling sandbags.
All the college kids and coaches that went down and filled sandbags to protect the city.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of partnership that Casper and these kids have put together that just makes you're so excited to be a part of it. Like, this is a great thing to be a part of. How many memories are planted in people that'll go on, they'll leave here and they might not ever rodeo again, but they were a part of something great. And we were a part of something great that helped them place that memory. That's the part that, sometimes you work long hours and the heat has been extremely hot this week and stuff, and you're kind of like, maybe I should take it a different. But all of these stories are what makes it such a great thing to be a part of.
Yeah. So listen, we kind of started talking about you, and you went to Boyd. So let's talk about you a little bit more.
It was a dark and stormy night when Siler was born into the world.
I hate talking about myself.
I know,
honestly.
most people do.
I don't know. I mean, I'm very fortunate because, in my opinion, a lot of the things that have happened to me and my family, they weren't supposed to happen. Okay, I'm from Florida. Agriculture is a big thing in Florida, but a lot of people don't realize that. They think of beaches and they don't think of cowboys and things like that. So there's a lot of things that weren't supposed to happen for me. That there have been people in my life, but honestly, I do think that it's a God thing, because these things don't happen. You don't have a guy that doesn't know you let you stay at his house. I mean, there's so many dots that have been connected that I've tried to take advantage of the opportunities I've been given, but all of these stars don't align. I don't come from a rodeo family. I didn't have any contacts in this business. The contacts that I do have wouldn't hire me. So this is true about rodeo announcing. Kirsten can attest to this. If you're in Florida, they want a rodeo announcer from Texas or Colorado. If you're in Colorado, they want a rodeo announcer from somewhere else. It makes it more exotic, I think. Right. I'll never understand it, but I guess it makes the committee seem like, well, we spent even more to get this guy from a different place.
From all over.
Exactly. So it's very, very difficult. The closest rodeo I have to my house is Houston, Texas. That's over 800 miles from Ocala, Florida. So there's a lot of travel and there's a lot of people behind me at home that make a lot of things happen. My mom's feeding the heifers at the house right now. My wife's taking care of the kids. So those are the things that people don't see behind the scenes is, I get to do all these great things and go to these great places. And thankfully my kids are growing up that they can travel with us. They're going to be in Estes Park in 3 weeks. So those are the type of things that I'm really starting to look forward to now, because the hardest part of all of it is being away and getting it started. Like, I've missed my kids' first day of school the last 5 years, and that's tough, but now that they're getting older and they can enjoy it with me, it's starting to really pay dividends.
Well, and I think too, unless your wife feels the way I do about homeschool. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no.
I feel that. I was going to say, like, there's so many more options for learning now. Yeah. Like, they could travel with you.
No, my favorite.
You got a dose of that last year?
No,
yeah, that's
my
not
favorite,
an option.
this kind of looks
either.
like a Zoom call. So my favorite is our son will be paying attention, and there's some other kid that's pushing the mute button or doing whatever.
Or they're like, in the chat.
No, Ramsey, stop doing that. Like, mute yourself, Ramsey. Your sister's taking a bath. Stop. That's the kind of stuff that, as a mom, she would call me and she's like, "It's noon and I need a drink." I'm like, not yet. Not yet.
Wait till
just
after
wait.
lunch.
There was one day where I called Josh. I think it was 10, and I was like, "You need to come home for lunch now." It's 10. I'm like, I don't care now.
I'm just saying.
I just need lunch right now.
And honestly, I think it was just as hard on the teacher, because the teacher, she's herding cats while trying to teach something, and but anyway, so
stay out of the chat.
Yeah, that's one of those things where if looking back, this is one of the greatest things that's ever been told to me is people can give you an opportunity, but it's up to you to take it. And that's the type of thing that I do take pride in is I've been given some opportunities, but I feel like I've taken advantage of them too, and that's something that I would challenge young people with. You can get a job interview, but it's up to you to get the job, so the connections can help you get to the door, but it's up to you to open it, walk through it, and make the best of that opportunity. So I feel like I'm very, very blessed to be in the places I am with the people that I've been able to meet along the way. So.
Yeah, very cool. Well, we have surpassed the 1 hour mark, which I think we could probably keep going, but I'm trying to keep them to 1 hour. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, CNFR Morning Show brought to you by CINCH Jeans. We will be back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And we have kind of a heavy Wyoming connection tomorrow. We're going to meet with Bo Clark, who is the coach of the University of Wyoming. And then we're also going to have Maddie Tarr, who is our man in the barrel this year. So I'm excited to have them back. Also, if you guys are watching on the official CNFR page, please take a look at Bullfrog Creatives. I've done a ton of behind-the-scenes interviews. The one I mentioned about Don Walters, just lots of good stuff. Also, throughout the year, I've done some college profiles, different college rodeo programs across the state, across the nation. So those are also up on that page. Again, you guys, we will see you tomorrow. Let me get to the right page here. Production's not my strong suit. You guys have a great day. Yesterday I said happy Saturday.
It's Thursday, I think.
In your defense, some of those days over the weekend kind of run together. Tuesday's like 3 days.
I was at the softball tournament and I was like, happy Saturday.
Maybe you need a margarita.
Maybe you already had a margarita. Sounds like.
I got a quick text. It's Wednesday. Okay. What do you do? So, happy Thursday. See you guys tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye.